last-minute shakeup at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning ride is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Nice
as simple
ride.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. Today we are going to talk about you doing the ultimate breakup, not with your partner, but breaking up with diets. And not just breaking up with diets, but actually building trust with your body. So I have a nutrition mindset coach, Lauren Leitner. She's going to talk about strategies to end food guilt. Did you hear that? Because that's a big one. Food guilt. I would be lying if I said to this day, if I eat something I know I'm not supposed to eat, I do. There's a little bit of guilt. I'd like to say I'm over it. Doesn't mean that it stops me, but there's a little bit of guilt of, oh, that's not good for you. The difference is at my stage in life, it's not guilt because of the calories. It's guilt because I know that the sugar isn't good for me, but whatever. So she's going to talk about ending food guilt and building sustainable eating habits without having to practice restriction. None of us like restriction. She's also going to talk about how intuitive eating can help you develop this guilt-free relationship with food so that you can leave behind food rules that you've decided are good or bad, or this food is good, this food is bad. So whether you're a fitness professional who's out there to get some knowledge to help clients, or maybe you're just seeking some personal growth, I want you to be able to leave this episode honoring your body's natural hunger cues and challenging the food police that create this unnecessary guilt, because they're out there, but they're up here in your mind. Those food police that are judging you, they're not really there. It's just you judging you. So Lauren, I'm going to bring you into the episode and have you introduce yourself. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Angie.
You bet. So Lauren, give us a quick background about what you do.
Yes, absolutely. So as a certified health and wellness coach and culinary nutrition expert, I have learned after being on many diets, almost all of them, that there is always this significant cycle that always, as you mentioned, has guilt and shame. I've been through this myself. And I work with clients that also just want to, they come to me wanting to lose weight. And at the end of it, I realize there's something that is stopping us from sustaining that change that they make. And that was kind of my aha moment, that I started to work with intuitive eating and kind of reframing the language that we've learned over time in the diet culture. So I work with people who have been chronic dieters for a lifetime and are so stuck and realizing it just hasn't been realistic change right now.
Yeah, I think that has everything to do with it, is what is realistic. And I also think there's an element of self-sabotage that goes along with diets. I think sometimes people go on a diet because they meet somebody or they want to look good for someone. And then if that doesn't work out, there's a little bit of self-sabotage, like, well, I don't have to do this anymore because they're not even in my life. But we're not even going to go there. That's just a whole nother element of how emotions play such a big role in our perception of food. So, Lauren, let's talk about the diet cycle trap.
Mhm.
So I think that many listeners or many trainers, fitness instructors who are listening are like, gosh, I have so many clients, or you out there might be thinking, there's so many times I've been trapped in what I would call the diet hamster wheel, right? So can you talk us through or walk us through what a cycle typically looks like and why it is so difficult for people to break free from it?
Absolutely. And I think identifying that there is a true diet cycle. And as you mentioned in the intro, is like, we're not breaking up with somebody, but it is like a relationship. So it starts in that honeymoon stage where you're so excited, I can do this. And you start your diet, and then we start moving into following all the rules that are set up. Once you're doing that, the deprivation piece happens. That's what I'd like to go into a little bit, but that's where all the cravings and the hunger starts to happen. And that's where we start to get really frustrated. Then we break the rules, we go off the diet, and then we feel guilt and shame and all these really awful emotions, and the cycle starts all over again.
So, can I pause here for a minute? I have to add a little what I hope to be levity to this topic. I wrote down what you said, and inside, my inner snark is coming out because I'm like, oh my gosh, if that doesn't sound like a relationship, I don't know what does. So, you said the first is like the glamorizing period. Oh my gosh, they're the best person I've ever met. They're perfect. They check all the boxes, AKA diet human. Next thing you know, then the rules. Hey, then our value system comes in the way that we think that things should be done. And then our frustration comes in because they're not following our rules. Because guess what? They don't even know our rules. And the next thing you know, we might just need to break up with them. Sorry. So much like a relationship, it's almost comical. But I hope that it embeds it in people's brain that there really is a cycle. And it is very much like a human relationship cycle, except I hope that the breakup doesn't end in guilt and shame, right?
And it shouldn't, because everything, we're always learning something from all the things we're doing over time, whether it's a relationship, but this is a relationship, yes, with yourself, with your body, with food. And those are real because we've gone through so many patterns of like going to social events and feeling awful and, feeling anxiety. But, when you get into that deprivation, and even whether it's a relationship, you start doing things that aren't you, that don't feel good, the restriction makes food louder. The restriction makes food louder. That is the moment where you say, I can't have something, that makes you want it more. And so we think we have this willpower issue. It's not willpower at all. This really is a disconnection from our bodies. And then we start to create that all or nothing thinking that a lot of us have.
I think that was a key moment. That was a mic drop moment. I hope Eric captured that one. So, restriction makes food louder. It goes back to anything that I work with clients on in mental health, is that the minute you tell someone you can't have that, or the minute you tell yourself, I can't have that, that's all you're thinking about, is that you can't have it. And so it just keeps coming at you. So if there's a piece of cheesecake in my refrigerator, I'm not going to lie, it's all I'm going to think about. I'm going to think about that cheesecake until every single morsel has melted in my mouth. Got it? And so if I tell myself I can't have that cheesecake, okay, Angie, you can't have that cheesecake. You can't have that. What's the message I'm saying 1,000 times that I can't have it? Well, because I keep saying the message, it's at the forefront of my mind. I'm spinning it because the very thing that I'm telling myself not to do is the thing that I'm focused on not doing. Therefore, it's top of mind. Is that right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So what happens to that cheesecake is you're already starting to label it as a bad food, because even the way you explain it, like, I'm going to have every morsel. But, there's that language of I will have it, or I get to have it. And with that language, we give ourselves permission to plan ahead where it's not the enemy. And chances are, when you do something like that, you're going to give yourself that space to enjoy it more because I plan for it. That is, whether it's a reward or whatever it is, I left room for it in my schedule. So I don't have to hide. I'm just going to enjoy it. And you probably will eat less of it. and take some time to not label the food. So there's a tip I give some of my clients is, and this sounds crazy, but when you find that neutral space around food, you're not judging it. And that takes practice, is thinking in this neutral state that you're just saying it's just cheesecake. So you're actually calling the food what it is rather than saying, oh, I'm going to have that cheesecake. That's bad. I shouldn't have it. And just say it's just cheesecake.
Isn't that the truth? It's just cheesecake. It's one piece of cheesecake. It's like, it's just cheesecake. Okay. And like you said, if you just set aside, like, hey, this is my reward for whatever, I'm just going to sit down and enjoy it. It doesn't even have to be a reward. I'm just going to allow myself to sit down and enjoy it because, hey, truth is I love cheesecake. And when's the last time I've had a slice? And so instead of labeling it as good or bad, it's like, it's just broccoli. So I like that. And then I agree with you. I think that because it doesn't have the bad, like the what's the word when you're not supposed to do something, which makes it very appealing to some people, right? It's almost like that teenage behavior. Well, if you tell me I can, I'm going to be sure I will because I know you don't want me to. And it's almost like our mind plays that same trick. But if you take away the badness of it, then it's no longer so provocative. Is that a good word?
Oh, I like that. And honestly, it's true because I grew up with no sugar allowed in my house. So what did I do when I went to all my friends' house? I went in their cabinets and looked for the sugar. But had I had that opportunity to enjoy it and not think of it as a bad food, it would have been a different relationship.
Oh, I don't know, Lauren, you should have grown up in my house because let me tell you what, Hostess was our friend. And I kind of wish it wasn't. I'm not going to lie. Hostess and Little Debbie. I mean, at the end of the day, they were cheap. My mom was a single mom. You could get a box of Hostess cupcakes for, we don't even want to say how cheap. But okay, so let's talk about rebuilding body trust. What does it actually mean to trust your body? Because if you've spent decades following these external food rules, and then all of a sudden somebody says, just trust your body. It comes out sounding very patronizing, like whatever, how do you tell people to trust their body?
So I think the other word that might associate a little gentler is leading with curiosity. So being a little journalist for yourself, if you will, is trying to figure out when you eat something and, how often have we said, oh God, I don't feel good. That didn't make me feel good. Then how we have to discover, like, what is our worth? Did I want that anyway? And if so, great. I'm going to have less of it next time, or I'm going to have something different because it didn't feel good. So you have to figure out, how do I want to feel, and kind of figure out, what are these foods doing for you long term and also short term? So what am I getting from this to feel this way? So curiosity rather than perfection always will build that trust in yourself.
So lead with curiosity versus perfection. I like that one because I do think that perfection, again, brings in the rules, but curiosity is like, what is driving me to want to eat it? Is it driving me to want to eat it because I think it's bad? Is it driving me to want to eat it because I don't feel good about myself and I want to feel worse? Because there is a big self-sabotage element to food. I think we all know it, whether we want to admit it or not. When we feel really icky, we almost just want to drown ourselves in bad food so that we have more reason to feel icky. And then some people who don't struggle with that are like, wait, what? But if you really think about the human psyche, it makes a lot of sense. So I think just being curious versus perfectionistic toward it or shame-based toward it would make a big difference.
Absolutely. And you have to remember that your body actually wants to communicate to you. So it will. So, hey, that's even a better relationship. That's the relationship we're looking for, in our whole world, whether it's personal or food, right?
I always have a pen by me. I'm always taking notes because I always like to grab sound bites or nuggets of information that I love to hold on to. So, managing this emotional eating, because it is a thing. And maybe some people out there have never experienced it. I would say the amount of people probably have had a time or two where they want to drown themselves in something. And it may not be food, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's, I mean, there's a lot of things out there. And we're only talking about food right now, but at the end of the day, people use numbing. People numb. That's it. That's a fact. People numb. Okay. The world, we are numbers. We numb with either alcohol or food or whatever it might be. But right now we're talking about food. So managing emotional eating. So there's a difference, right? I know that you teach intuitive eating. So how do people start to really recognize emotional hunger versus physical hunger? Because I do think we shut down those signs sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, listen, emotional eating is a big topic, and it's human. It's not the idea that we're failing at something. And it goes back to the beginning of our conversation, is when something doesn't go right in that diet cycle, we want to figure out what could we learn from it. Also, curiosity, right? So thinking about the moment before you're going to eat and you having those emotions, this is coming back to this: how do I not judge myself? I just want to observe what I'm feeling. So I've had some clients work with that, is forget about what, if you're going to eat or not eat, just observe how you're feeling. Jot that down. No judgment, no shame. And then the next piece is that gives you that moment to pause, and that little moment in your pausing before, how do I want to feel? What do I really need right now? That's going to take practice, but that little moment is going to be so powerful to make the decision. Do I want that cheesecake? If the answer is yes, great. Go ahead and eat it. But now I'm connecting what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and then I get to make a decision.
Okay. I like that question. How do I want to feel? It's simple and it's powerful. And if we're going to be honest, there are foods that don't agree with us, right? Like they just don't. And some of my favorite foods, they give me a lot of feedback. And so that's a great question, because there are times where I'm like, how do I want to feel? Well, I don't really want to feel the way I'm going to feel when I eat this, but I really like this. And so I'm going to eat it anyway. And then I'm going in with almost this sense of empowerment in my own decision versus shame that I might make myself feel bad. I like that, because how I want to feel is putting onus on me. It's not shaming me. It's just giving me the option to determine, is this food worth the feedback?
Yes. And I think the big thing you mentioned intuitive eating, is it's not about never having an emotional eating moment. We're going to have that. But as you start to be more of the observer, you're going to be more present and really hone in on the decisions you want to make. And there are going to be times with, you know what, I'm going to eat this right now because that's where I'm at, and I'm going to move on. And you start to become less guilty over time as you practice that.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. And I love these kind of nuggets that I'm gathering here. Lauren, I want to reset for a minute. So I'm Angie Miller. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body. And we are talking about breaking up with diets. You don't have to break up with your partner. Just we're asking that you might want to consider breaking up with that diet that you're on. I don't know how that diet's going to feel about it, but I think they're going to be okay. And Lauren Leitner, she is a culinary nutrition expert, and she's a certified health and wellness coach. And we're talking about what it means to do intuitive eating and build trust in your body and get rid of all this shame around food so that we stop food labeling. So, Lauren, I know that I have health and wellness professionals listening, and I also know that I have health and wellness enthusiasts listening. how do you, like, if you're a person who's helping other people, even if it's a friend or a mom or a dad or a next door neighbor, how do you help people? What's the most effective way to maybe help people get off the diet culture cycle? Because I hear it every day. There's not a single day that somebody does not approach me and tell me the diet, and it's astounding how many diets are out there. I'm like, So, what? How do you get them out of that?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I would say is leading with empathy and realizing that your client is coming in wounded if they're on a struggle of dieting all the time. It really, carries a lot of weight, so to speak. And releasing this idea of trying to fix and solve it, but taking a moment with your client, giving them a little more autonomy of having some ideas that come from them first, so that you can integrate your professional opinions and thoughts about how to get them when it's actually coming from them first. So listening more is going to be the biggest thing. And thinking about normalizing that resistance, and that it's it's all a part of unlearning something, and understanding that there is a lot of unlearning to do, giving them that idea of, okay, it took you this long to continue this habit, whether it's good or bad or doesn't feel good for you. So now we're going to take time to unlearn it, to learn something new.
You know, something you said there really there were a lot of things that you said there that really kind of hit home with me. And one of them was that the way that I asked the question, I almost regretted immediately. And I'm so glad that you answered it the way you did, regardless, because I said, what can we do? And I want to pause for a minute, because here's the thing. When someone else has a problem or has something that you think isn't serving them, guess what? There's nothing you can do,
Yeah.
nor should you, because you are not here to fix other people. So walk away, right? Like, that is not our job. We get into this thing of, oh, I have to save them, or I have to fix them, or I have to tell them what to do. And I just beg all of you to ask yourselves, when's the last time you have thought to yourself, oh, I just want someone to tell me what to do? No. Okay. Well, I don't know. There are times I have decision fatigue and I'm like, tell me what to do. But for the most part, none of us like being told what to do. So could we all please stop telling other people what to do, or stop assuming that the way we're living our lives is the way everyone else should live them? I'm like, wow.
I
So
know
thank
it's
you.
hard. Yeah,
Right?
it's hard. And absolutely. And I think, like, we have to celebrate more wins. And all of our clients need to have a win one way or another for them to want to succeed. So it could be the smallest thing. And we as professionals need to find what that is for them, because they're not always ready to see it, hear it, or, sometimes I'll say something and they'll be like, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. So that's our job as professionals, to see, like, the the small things are big things for them too.
Right. And the first thing you said is just kind of listening. We have two ears for a reason. So listen, lead with listening and hear their story. And maybe then it's an empathic comment like, oh, it sounds like you went on this because you were feeling like your jeans were getting a little tight, you were getting a little uncomfortable. And maybe then it leads to, how do you feel being on it? And then hear their story. Maybe they feel great. Or maybe they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry all the time. And then maybe that's your opportunity to say, yeah, that makes sense. I know sometimes when I go on diet, I don't feel so good because I'm hungry all the time. And then maybe that leads to, well, what do you do? Right. So, but it's asking questions and listening, I think, is always the most powerful way to get someone to trust you enough to actually listen to you. Because guess what? Blah, 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 until they trust you.
Yes, I mean, and this isn't this all about trust anyway. So when you're building that person, you know that they're on your side. They're just as excited. That's who you want to work with anyway, rather than someone who's dismissive or, a trainer that's staring at themselves while the other person's working. So I think having it as more of a collaboration and thinking that is a really powerful tool.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, Lauren. Scales seem to be the scale that people determine success or failure. It's almost like how society determines success or failure depending on how much they make. So everybody gets to determine what success or failure is, but scales seem to be the almighty. How do you get? Because I kind of want to get to this. Like, how do you get people to where they stop leaning on a scale so much?
Absolutely. Well, I can give a great example. First, I'm going to say is that I did a little 30-minute experiment on the scale. If this doesn't determine the myth around the power of scales that we have given, is you go on it before, when you wake up, before you go to the bathroom, you drink some water, have coffee or whatever, you weigh yourself again. And you keep doing that throughout 30 minutes. That scale is going to go up 5 to 8 pounds, or it did for me. So do you think I gained 8 pounds of fat in 30 minutes? And so that's the reality, is that it's weighing everything. And then I had a client who was like, Lauren, I'm not seeing any changes on the scale. We need to talk about that. And I said, okay, great. But let's talk about, we'll get back to that. I want to tell me how you're feeling. And she's like, well, and she's in her late 60s. Well, I have more energy, like I did when I was in my 20s. I'm sleeping better. My digestion is better. And I just have more energy throughout the day. And then I just went back. Okay, great. So tell me about the scale again. So I think this whole idea of what we've done, and as we do strength training, right, we could weigh the same exact amount on the scale and look completely different. But that power we have given the scale is not our fault. We have been trained this, and it is really difficult. And this is what, it's like, you could see how you feel. And I think that's really what I'm trying to teach my clients is focus more on that. That is part of that intuition and the trust and the curiosity. It's a healthier cycle rather than the diet cycle.
It is. It is about trust. And I think it's also, if you really want your quote scale, your scale is really how your clothes feel on your body and how you
Mhm.
feel when you're wearing those clothes. To me, that's a much better indicator than
Absolutely.
the scale. Because to me, you know what the scale is like? Clothing sizes. And if you've been around like I have, clothing sizes have changed. I'm not going to go into how, because that's just depressing, but they've changed. What is a size 2 is not the 2 that it was 20 years ago. I'm going to leave it at that. So we really can't dictate by a scale or a clothing size. For one thing, scales vary. So it's really, again, how do your clothes feel and how do you want to feel when you're in your clothes? So Lauren, I really appreciate you coming on. Some of the nuggets that I heard was that restriction makes food louder, which essentially means suppression doesn't work. You said build a relationship with yourself and start with curiosity and curiosity over perfection. And those were kind of a couple of the nuggets that I really, really appreciated. So how, if people want to reach out to you, how could they reach out to you and get a hold of you?
Yes, I am available. I am on Instagram at power, PWR _ your life. Anybody can email me at lauren@laurenleitner.com. I always do, a complimentary call because I always love to know, like, is this a good fit? Or maybe we just, leave you with something and there's never any pressure. I love to be able to help anybody.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you, Lauren Leitner, for coming on Strong Mind, Strong Body. And thanks to all of you for listening. I wish you the best in breaking up with your current diet and falling in love with yourself. We'll see you next week.